All right, so in this one, what we're doing is we're going to take a look at what it takes to open a file and read the contents out of it. Now, a couple things that I've changed since the last video I just wanted to mention is you'll notice that I have added comments. Right now, the only way I know to add comments in Rust is with 2//. I don't know if they have a block comment where you can, in fact, like normally in most languages, you can do something like this and it will comment out that entire block. I don't know if that works in Rust at the moment because the only examples that I've seen for comments is /. So we'll get to that in another video. But so right now I've added some comments. Now when I'm writing code, one of the things that I'll do that I like to do is I'll write what's called pseudocode. And basically it's not code at all. It's really just comments that I sprinkle down through the file to keep up with what I have to do in order to get this program to work properly. So as an example, I've added a comment here to say that we're going to grab the command line arguments. Then I put in here that we're going to open up the files. And then in this case, we're just printing the content of the file, but you'll see down here that we're talking about building our package and getting ready to send it to the REST server, and then creating a connection to the REST server and sending it, receiving the response, closing the file, removing the input file. So it's just stuff to remind me that I've got to get all of this done in order to complete this application. Now, to open up a file, we had to use another standard class, a standard module, and so we've got use standard, and then we've got the module FS for file system. And so we're going to come down here, and the only thing that we've done here, and this needs a little bit of explanation. So we're telling it to let contents. So the variable that represents the open file is going to be called contents. And so we're saying let contents equal the file system module. And then we've got a function in there called read to string. So this is going to read the entire contents of the file into a single variable. Now, it's okay for what I'm doing in this particular example, but in cases where you have a larger file, it's possible that you're going to actually need to go in and read one line at a time through the file. And there are ways to do that as well. They're a little bit more complicated than what I was wanting to do here, so I left it this way, and we may end up having to change it depending on how things work. So what's happening here is it goes through and it tells it to read the string. Now there was another strange thing when I went to compile this. It told me that I needed to add, if I named this variable output file as an example, on purpose, that I needed to put an underscore in front of it, and it did it on hash and output file, but it didn't do it on input file. So I don't know what the reasoning behind that is, but I went ahead and put an underscore in front of each one of these variables anyway, just to keep the compiler from complaining. And so then we say let contents equal the read to string input file. Now the .expect, this is another one of those things, and just to explain, I can put this here just fine, but most of the code, they show this thing down here like this. But basically what's happening is if I get an error back in this function call for read to string, it has a .expect, and by adding that .expect to the end of this function call, I can tell it that in the event that you actually get an error, something that is unexpected, then I want you to actually show something went wrong reading the file and exit out. Now, I'd actually like for it to show me the name of the file, so we're going to add this in here, and we're going to put a comma, and we're going to put underscore input file. So that lets us know exactly what file it is that it's having a problem with. In fact, I think I might change this. Something went wrong reading the, and then we'll say input file. All right, and so to test this, all we're going to do is close this out, and we're going to come down here, and I have created a file called test.txt that already has data in it. Now, if the file doesn't exist when I go to open it, it'll panic and break out of the program. So we do have to handle that situation here shortly, because the output file won't exist until we actually create it. So the next thing we got to learn is how to actually create a file. But I'm just going to hit this. and it comes up and tells me that something went wrong. So let's VI main. I forgot to change when I added input file. Well, no, I did change. So something here, that was on, what line was that? That was on line 16. And 16 is this line. So we're trying to open input file. And then we're trying to input file. I didn't misspell anything there. Let's see again. So it says this function takes one argument, but two arguments were supplied. So let's flip over here to our documentation real quick. Okay, so we might not be able to do what I did there. I'll have to look into that, because what it's saying is that expect doesn't take parameters, so we can't actually add this on here like this. So I'll look into what it would take to actually pass in the name of the file when we do it. We may have to build a string to hold this contents up front. So let's do this again. Try opening up this. And so you can see that it printed out hello world is going to be great. All of that, if we actually open up the test file, that's exactly what we have in the test file. So that opens the file and prints the output to the screen. So now what we've got to do is we've got to figure out how to open a file that doesn't exist, where we're actually going to create the file. And then we're going to have to do some research about how to set up to make some REST calls to our server.